Hello everyone and welcome to this video in which we'll be talking about reading of a CAT 2024 slot 1 reading comprehension passage. In this video, I'm not going to be solving questions. I'm going to be rather talking about what are we supposed to understand after finishing reading this passage. So this was a passage on crafts, and language in terms of vocabulary, sentence construction is actually pretty simple. Despite that, I can understand why people might take a bit of time to read the passage, and I'll explain why as we go through the passage. So the passage starts off in the first paragraph with the author talking about how crafts require a lot of skill. So they require an all-round approach to work, and we need to understand the whole product, not individual parts. We need to have a creative bent of mind and an attitude that necessitates devotion to the job, that we should love the job and focus on communal interests, that we are looking forward to serving the community. And it emphasizes human touch, individual judgment. So it's very, very creative in its way that it works. We have to have the entire product in our mind, and we need to have a love for the job. These are the things that crafts actually require. And what are crafts? In my mind, crafts are anything that people make which are aesthetic, while it may also serve some kind of a practical purpose. So it can be like building furniture, but then building furniture with hand, right? When you have got really ornate furniture, which is very well decorated, very well carved out. It can be painting, it can be sculptures, it can be proper craft work as well. So these are crafts. So the author talks about what crafts require and demand in the very first paragraph. Then next paragraph, he begins by saying the crafts concept seems to run against the preponderant ethos of management studies. So he's saying that crafts are opposite of management studies in certain ways. Why? Because management studies, he says, prioritize efficiency and consistency, which means that the author automatically is implying that crafts do not prioritize efficiency and consistency. Then he says craft skills are portrayed as being primitive and traditionalist. So of course, crafts are thought to be old ways of doing things. Management is new when you're becoming more and more efficient. So modern versus ancient, prioritizing efficiency and consistency over taking your time with creative interest, having a personal touch. That is the kind of difference that the author is pointing out between management and crafts. And that continues on into the next paragraph, and the author is starting to talk about the American system of using standardized parts. And when you have standardized parts, then you can build multiple different tools and products using those parts. And then he is citing the success of Singer sewing machine, which was mass produced. Right? So it is a mass produced device. So that is an example that the author is giving opposing to crafts. And he said that this process of creating more efficiently, mass producing things created its own reactions. What are the first reactions? First, in the form of an arts and craft movement of the late 19th century. So maybe arts and craft became something that people wanted to focus upon because of this mass producing. It was a maybe from this paragraph, we should be getting a sense of understanding that it was a counter to the mass production of things. And small is beautiful, which means small businesses are beautiful movement of the 1970s that don't only buy things from large corporations. Small businesses are also going to be beautiful things. So that came into picture. And then a third crafts movement also came into picture after that, where people started prioritizing man-made, or not man-made, I would say more crafts-oriented things as something that have got an positive environmental impact. As compared to the conventional industry, which is portrayed as polluting the environment and then, not caring for where they are taking their products from, where they're not growing their own things, where they're okay with disposing of the waste material into environment. So these are the three different things that because of the mass production and the anti-crafts thing happening, crafts also retaliated with their own movements. That is what is said in the second paragraph. Third paragraph, the author is talking about where from will the demand for the crafts market come from. And he's saying that there are two potential markets. One is from consumers who are willing to pay a premium price for extra quality. So if it's man-made, it is supposed to be of greater quality. So they are willing to pay a higher amount. And second is from people who want to use their purchases for ethical purposes, like supporting local workers, for doing something positive for the environment. So that the things that you're buying can be repaired and recycled. So it comes from a positive kind of a thought process, creating positive impact for society and environment. So these are the two consumers who will buy crafts, and that they are the ones who mainly create the market for crafts, is what the author is saying. And next paragraph, the author is talking about where from will the demand come from for the workers' side. That why would workers want to take up craftsmanship? Because he says that the primary reason is that they can make creative choices. So it's more of an individual choice. What I want to make something which is an expression of my own individuality. And the author is talking about mass production as opposite of it, which has machines which automates processes and workers only do dull and repetitive tasks in comparison to craftsmen rather, who can make their own creative decisions. And the author is giving an example of agile methodology. You don't have to focus upon all of those things, but the author is mainly talking about the appeal of having your own judgment, own creativity being put into the making of crafts. Second to last paragraph, the author is starting with a question that can crafts themselves create a greater market for jobs? Can we rely on crafts as a primary mode of business? And he concludes by saying that no. In a world where products and services often have to pass through regulatory hoops, he's mainly blaming regulatory hoops for that. And he's saying that when you are putting in a lot of regulations, then of course, larger corporations are going to succeed. Mass production is going to succeed and individual craftsmen are not going to. Last paragraph, he talks about how, there is not an automatic connection between crafts and creativity. So especially he's giving the examples of medieval craft guilds. And it's not true that whenever craftsmen are encouraged, that it will lead to greater creative pursuits. He's giving the example of medieval craft guilds, saying that when you create guilds, then they resist new entries. So new entrants who are trying to do something new, something creative, something very innovative as compared to what was being done earlier, then they are blocked and you create a monopoly around the same type of crafts. And he concludes with the same thought, saying that craft workers can thrive in the modern era, but only if they don't get too organized. Because if they get too organized, then they will create a door, a barrier around them, and they will create the same thing over and over again, and creativity will stop coming into the picture. So this is what the passage says. So what makes the passage a longer read, a heavier read, is because every paragraph has kind of a new point that the author is making about crafts, craftsmaking, and craftsmen. So a lot of ideas to incorporate into our understanding in order to understand overall what is the passage about. So it's a very dense passage, although average length passage, but still it's very dense. And even the way that it's written, it starts with an ellipsis. It has got another ellipsis here. It has got another ellipsis here. It has got another ellipsis here, which means that the author is probably picking up this passage from a very large work of literature, a very large article. And the author wants to cover a lot of points. So he's not giving us 500 words in one single chunk. He's picking up bits and pieces, and then he's giving us ellipses to say that there was some content in between, but then I'm removing the content because I have to cram in more points. So a lot of points being made in the short volume of a passage. So density of content will definitely make this passage feel like a heavier read because there's so much to remember and understand. But language is still free-flowing. Language is still easy to understand. Vocabulary is not of a high level. So all this put together, I would say it's not an easy, at the same time, not a very difficult passage to read as well. Things that we can take away from the passages. Number one, it's of 111 words. Again, average length as far as CAT as a paper is concerned. The passage is an analysis of crafts and various aspects of it. That what is a market for it, who takes it up, why organized crafts market cannot succeed at this point of time. Can crafts become big and the major driver for employment? No. So a lot of analysis of the entire field of crafts is happening in the passage. It's been taken from an article in The Economist. So very common kind of a source. Again, it's a international magazine. Because it's a heavier to read passage, I would say that anywhere around 3 minutes can also be taken by people who are well seasoned and well acquainted with reading comprehension passages, because there is so much to read and absorb. Acceptable time to read, I would say, is 4 minutes. I would say this is probably a passage that can take a bit of time in your paper, but more than 4 minutes, I will not encourage people to spend even on reading a passage like this. Average level difficulty, as I said, moderate, not very easy, not very difficult. A few things that you can actually learn from the passage, of course, is agile methodology. Especially people working in the IT sector will be already aware of it. It's been mentioned in the passage. It's a very, very popular methodology. I would encourage everyone to go and Google and understand how agile methodology works. It is all about scrums and having regular meetings, regular feedback. So understand how that works, because it's a very common term, and in your management classes, you'll actually learn about the agile methodology. It's a management technique used in operations-based industries. And the word ethos has become a common word in a lot of RC passages. So knowing what ethos means is very important. Ethos actually comes, or ethos is the root for the English word ethics. It's the kind of belief system, the principles of any field. So these are the principles by which crafts have to happen. These are the principles by which business has to happen. That is what is ethos of business, ethos of management, ethos of crafts. Ethos can also be about people's lives. It can be ethos of a particular religion as well. So ethical values that people stand by is called ethos. So these are a few things that you can understand from the reading of the passage. Stay tuned for the next video in which I'll be solving the questions of this exercise. Thank you.